A big virtual welcome to the Centre for Journalism. I'm Rob Bailey, a senior lecturer at the University of Kent, and over the next half an hour or so we'll be giving you a taste of what it's like to study journalism here with us. We're live tonight in one of our TV studios where our students can practice their production and presenting skills, a chance that you might have if you choose to come with us. Coming up soon, I'll be talking to student Kieran Webb, who's just about to finish his final year at the university. And later, one of our graduates, Sofia Akin, will come in to talk about how a journalism degree from Kent can set you on the path to a dream career. We'll also chat about the incredible opportunities at KMTV and why the National Council for the Training of Journalists is so important to your future. Please remember to pop your questions in the chat and we'll respond to as many of those as we can while we're on air. But first, we asked Kieran to take you on a virtual tour of the centre. Let's join him now.
Hi there guys, I'm Kieran, I'm a journalism student in my third year here and I'm going to take you on a tour of the Centre for Journalism. Go on. So yeah, we're walking through the journalism building. This is the hallway, and inside here is G104. This is our main newsroom, our main big newsroom full of iMacs. We've got Adobe Premiere Pro, we've got Final Cut Pro, everything to use, and this is where students get to work on their news days. So in here we've also got our soundproofed kind of radio room. So if you want to do any recording, you know, do podcasts, do voiceover, do some radio work. It's awesome. We've got some amazing kit here. So if you fancy, you know, working your voiceover chops, we've got the kit here for you. Inside here is where all the toys are kept. This is Steve's cupboard. We've got our mini TV studio here, which we also use for TV news days, and we've got loads of camera equipment, although it's all out at the moment because everyone's being really busy. We've got loads of cameras and loads of really cool toys to play with. There's so much more than I could even begin to describe on offer here at the Centre for Journalism. So if you're serious about becoming a journalist, there's no better place to be than at the University of Kent. See you later.
And Kieran's with me now. Kieran, thank you so much for the brilliant tour of the centre and also for joining us for a chat. We've done many of these open days, virtually and in person over the years, and I know that one of the things that people are thinking about is journalism for me? What kind of person studies journalism? And I thought maybe we could take you back 3 years to when you were in that position. First of all, what A-levels did you study?
God, you're taking me back now. So I did like English, film and drama, so like not really your kind of typical A-levels, you know, when you think of a journalist, you think maybe like politics or something like that. But I got into journalism because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and they were giving a talk on it in my sixth form, and I got talking to a few local journalists from where I was from, and suddenly it all started to click. I started thinking, yeah, being a journalist actually this sounds kind of right. You know, I like hearing other people's stories. I like being able to tell stories. Like, this sounds like the kind of thing for me. And then started looking, and here I am. Excellent.
We always say the one thing that is kind of defines a journalism student, regardless of anything else, is a bit of curiosity about the world. It's about just wanting to understand what's going on around you, and that's something obviously that you've demonstrated it in spades while you've been here. Now that you're here, we have a very hands-on teaching approach, and I wondered whether you might be able to say a little bit about the kinds of things you've learned how to do while you've been a student of journalism here.
Wow, I mean, for one, like kind of working in an environment like this, getting to use a kind of TV studios, that's not something you can just do at home. So yeah, I mean, also I've been getting to work on kind of like presenting skills with our news days. I think like a really big thing is just like, what's been nurtured here is that kind of curious mind, that kind of curiosity, and to go out there and kind of start looking for things. Don't be afraid of approaching people. I remember trying to interview people, do vox pops, interview people on the street for the first time, and I was absolutely bricking it. I was so terrified, but now it's not that hard. You know, you just ask your questions, and you know it works. So yeah.
And you mentioned in the video there about the kit. I mean, one of the things that a lot of young people, they start thinking about journalism because they enjoy writing, and maybe you were maybe in that category. You studied film at A-level as well. I mean, we've got camera kits here and things that give people a chance to learn how to make professional television, the kind of stuff that you've demonstrated there with your kind of gonzo style walk through the centre. It's really important, isn't it, that you have access to this library of kit that you can take out whenever. Well, what have you used it for? What kind of stories have you done with this?
Cool. I mean, obviously we do so many kind of TV assignments where it's essential to kind of book up cameras and things like that. But we do radio assignments where we've got the audio recorders that go for going out. But most recently, I kind of did a really big TV project, and the kit here was so essential. I was admittedly carrying much more than I should have been, but boom poles, full-on camera kits, about too many tripods. We've got all this kit. I mean, we've even got a drone here, and it wasn't necessarily something I needed for my thing, but the opportunity to fly one I thought was really cool, and I really wish I could have kind of wangled a way to kind of incorporate a drone into some.
There's still time before graduation. we can still get you out with the drone. I mean, it's so important, and from our point of view, really, really important that we offer that kit. We've got a library of it here that the students can take out whenever they want to take it out. You can film stories with it, but you can also film, your grandma's birthday with it, just to get used to that kit. And it's always here available 24/7, effectively. You said you did a TV show. Take us into that, because people might be interested in specifically the kinds of things we're doing. What was your show?
Okay, so I made a kind of version of the hit show Taskmaster. I kind of made my own version of it. Got some people in, made my own tasks, and then we had a great live studio TV recording, and that was something I got to do as a final year project. I mean, some people might be familiar with kind of dissertations at university level. This was kind of that level project. I got to make my own TV show, which was really cool. I've never got that opportunity anywhere else, and I don't think anyone would have been crazy enough to let me kind of make my own kind of thing like that. So I had really good fun with that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and it's an important part of what we do. Journalism is such a broad church. Sometimes it's about covering politics or covering a big crime story or something like that. But sometimes it's just about entertaining people. And I know that's been your kind of passion, bit of a film buff. And you've had an opportunity to explore that during your time here, haven't you?
That is one of the biggest things that I realised starting here early on, is that all of us in my year group, we all have such different kind of interests and things, but it all kind of works, but no, it's not like, oh, you like this thing, you can't write about this. If you can find interesting stories, you can write about pretty much anything, and that belief has definitely been fostered here. I pity you lecturers who had to read some of the like really bizarre stories I've probably written. But I think there's some great stories out of it. As long as you can find them, you can write about anything.
I mean, we're all about multimedia journalism here. We teach our students how to produce stories for print, radio, TV, and online. We want you to be as versatile as possible. And in fact, that's something we'll talk with Sofia about a bit later on. But I mean, I remember you doing a data journalism story in your second year, which was all about the success of Marvel films. And we had a visualization full of Spider-Man gifs, and it's just, and you can have fun with storytelling, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, data storytelling is such a really interesting one, because when you think about it, it's facts and figures. It's got to be boring. It's got to be. Well, that isn't necessarily the case. You can really do some fun things with figures. I mean, with that one, I'm pretty sure with the line graph, I made it look like Spider-Man was swinging off the line. And it's bizarre, and it probably sounds messy, but I thought it was quite fun.
I thought it was fun as well. So, I mean, let's go into the more serious things, though, because, I mean, one of the things that we are really proud of here at the Centre is the opportunities that we give our students to do real journalism. Just a week ago, you were doing an all-night shift in Medway here during the local election counts, covering what was, briefly, the biggest story in the country, Labour taking Medway Council. And you were there to watch it happen. Tell us a bit about what that was like.
Yeah, so it was a crazy experience. I've never done anything like it before. Obviously, I'd never covered an election before, so I got to join Sofia, who you'll talk to later, at the Medway local election counts. We were there from about 10 p.m. until the early, about 7 a.m. maybe. Waiting for each thing to come in. Everyone's counting boxes and stuff, and more and more, things came through. People getting excited. It was all these prominent figures from the local area around that. I've always been chasing to kind of interview before, now all in one place. And so you get to interview all these kind of MPs and leaders, and amazingly, I couldn't have asked for a better election to be my first one, because it was the most historic one for Medway Council, with Labour obviously come into power, which it was incredible, really.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, I mean, I saw you in the morning. You were completely sleep deprived, basically delirious in the morning. But you told me that Sky and BBC were there. Obviously, you were kind of lurking in the background of many of the shots. And their journalists were coming up to you and to another student who was covering it with you, asking you for help to cover that story.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we're kind of new to this. We're really kind of fresh and never done this before, so we don't really know what to expect. So we were trying to keep on our toes about everything, make sure we're, which council's won this seat, how many seats are we up to now, how many have we got to go, because it's getting more and more tense as the lead up comes up, there's that race and yeah, it was weird because we had kind of BBC presenter coming over to us and saying like, oh, well, who's winning now? And asking us, and I thought you were meant to be keeping track of this, not us. So yeah, that was definitely quite flattering, yeah.
Brilliant. We're going to talk more. You were doing that obviously for KMTV. We'll be talking more about the importance of KMTV to the culture here at the centre in a bit. But you've obviously been here for 3 years. You've been taught. I've taught modules for you. I wondered whether you might be able to tell people a little bit about the teaching culture here and also the open door policy. Because one of the things that we try and encourage here is students to be able to come and talk to us, treat us more like editors than teachers, being available all the time. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. One of the most key things about the CFJ here, unlike any other kind of university course I know of, is that I know that as long as no one's teaching, I can come into the centre, knock on your door, knock on anyone's door and say, hey, I've got an idea for a story, can I talk about it with you? Or hey, I've been working on this, can I have a few ideas? And even if you're in the middle of lunch or something, you'll still make the time. The staff really do care about how we're doing and our ideas and fostering that. And that is a really important part of the teaching, I've found, is that it's not just an assignment to you guys. It's these are ideas that we care about, and you guys care about making sure that we we can make them as best as we can.
Definitely try our best, absolutely. And the other thing, we've talked a little bit about the practical teaching, very workshop based. You'll be getting your hands on cameras, getting your hand on the Adobe suite. Every student gets an Adobe login so they can access Photoshop and InDesign and Premiere and all of these kind of industry standard bits of kit. But alongside that, there's some really important academic work that we teach, and you've learned how to kind of make sure your stories are safe, ethically and legally. How important has that been to you over the course of this year?
Well, of course, it's really important in terms of the journalism industry and making sure that you aren't going to print something that could get your editor sued, right? But I remember last year going into doing a law module, and I was dreading it because I'd never done law before. Law's scary. It's not something I know about, and I was dreading it. But then once I got into it, it was broken down so well. It was made really fun and really interesting. Getting to look at these cases, look at like examples, getting to see how it affects me, and then how I need to kind of work alongside that. It was really, really interesting. It actually ended up being one of my more fun kind of parts of my year last year.
Yeah, I guess there's probably never been a more important time for journalists to be aware of not just what they can and can't say, and as you say, how not to be sued, but also about inclusivity, diversity, about the way that we approach difficult subjects. And these are things that we challenge you to think about in the centre, aren't they? Brilliant. I mean, before we move on in the programme, I just wonder, there are people out there thinking, is a life in journalism, is a life at Medway for me? What would you say to people out there who are thinking about that now? Why should they come here?
Well, I looked at obviously a lot of different unis coming here, and I didn't necessarily realise it at the time, but ever since kind of starting here, I've realised Medway is a really unique place to work as a journalist. Being a unitary council, it's made up of several areas, and they're all quite different. I've done vox pops on Rochester High Street, and I've done vox pops on Chatham High Street, and they're two very different experiences because there's two different cultures there. You've got some really interesting stuff, and all these kind of leaders about, and so many kind of smaller areas that are run. But I found it really interesting getting to talk to all these kind of people, and it all being so close by. The transport's really good. I didn't have to, because I don't drive here, I've got nowhere to kind of park around here. I found it quite easy being able to actually, get down to places, which is so important for on the ground kind of journalism.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, before I can let you go, we've got some questions coming in from the chat, so we're just going to deal with those together. First one, what does a typical term time week look like for you?
Well, so I mean, it varies by year.
Yeah.
This obviously in my third year, it's been a lot more free because I've had to have a lot of time to work on my projects independently. But casting my mind back now, I remember in the first year, there was quite a lot of learning to do. We offer shorthand lessons here, really tricky skill. It requires a lot of practice, but there's always those constant lessons.
It's unusual as our degree, because we ask you to do an awful lot more contact hours than a typical university program does, don't we? So in your first year and second year, it was typically 20 plus hours a week. You'd be in the centre every single day, and that's partly because you're getting your hands on software. You've got people like me and my colleagues who have been professional journalists, who are still working as journalists, looking over your shoulder and helping you get the most out of that kind of stuff. So it's quite intensive, isn't it, in a way?
There's so much more than just necessarily the contact hours, because obviously when you're working as a journalist, so much of your time is spent looking for stories, chasing up those stories, interviewing the people, researching. And so doing that does take a lot more time out of your week than you'd necessarily realise or even plan for. But also the kind of typical work week depends on how you approach the NCTJ diploma, which is such a huge part of this degree, is that you get the NCTJ diploma alongside it. I worked really, really hard last year to kind of bash out as many of my NCTJ exams as possible, because I knew I'd have a really busy year this year. Some people didn't do as many last year and have been doing more this year. So I guess it's up to you really how you kind of balance the NCTJ side of things. But the teaching's all done in line with that.
It's really good to mention the NCTJ, because that is such an important part of what we offer here. We're a fully accredited course. You've taken professional exams in news writing, in broadcast journalism, in media law. What other exams have you taken for the NCTJ?
Did broadcast. I've done a bit of shorthand. I recently did editing standards for journalists. And I'll be working on my portfolio quite soon as well, submitting all that. But yeah, there's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's regarded as a kite mark for young journalists, a passport into the industry. Anyone who passes that diploma, generally speaking, they're the people who get the job. So it is such an important part of it. We've also been asked about the contact hours versus solo work balance. You touched on it a little bit. Just before I let you go, the final year of the degree is a little bit different, isn't it? You had to manage your time a lot more. How did you find that?
It was definitely shocking at first, because I realised, I've only got kind of 1 or 2 lectures a week, as opposed to it being in almost every day. But that was obviously down to modules. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of solo work. But I often found myself still coming in here anyway, despite not having necessarily specific taught hours, coming in, to talk with my academic advisors, to talk through my project ideas, to do more editing, just to get eyeballs on it, and to get second opinions. And so really being here, this environment is a big part of the degree, I think. It plays a lot into it.
Yeah, so in the third year, we give our students the space to go and make a real calling card for themselves. You made a Taskmaster-style show, setting you up for a future career, I'm sure, in television and film. Other students go and do documentaries, they make podcasts, they make long-form radio pieces, which requires quite a lot of time. So we give you a lot of independence, but it's all supervised. You'll have someone that you can come in and talk to whenever you need to about that project. So even though it's independent working hours, that supportive environment is always still there. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Kieran, for coming in and joining us. Next tonight, we'll hear from Sofia Akin, who graduated from the Centre for Journalism last summer. Since then, she's been working full-time at KMTV as a reporter, producer and presenter. Here's a little glimpse at some of the stories Sofia's worked on.
Hello and welcome to Made in Kent. Hello and welcome to Kent on Climate. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Sofia Akin and here are your top stories on Friday the 28th of April. So as you can see, the Medway Labour and Cooperative Group seeming pretty happy right now, as they have just taken control of Medway Council for the first time since it's been running. Here, are you hopeful that Labour will win in other parts of Kent today?
Yes, I am, and I'm very pleased with the results here, very pleased with the results across the country. Really, really good set of results for us.
So what do you make of that and the disruption that it's causing to counties like Kent?
Well, we apologise for that. We don't want the community to be disrupted. We don't want commuters to not be able to get in.
They're currently in the middle of filming one of their scenes for the 6th series of The Crown, and you can see they're doing it right outside Rochester Cathedral. Like filming in Rochester?
Of course.
It's lovely, isn't it?
I've never been to Rochester before.
You might be able to see a mysterious man in the corner there. Locals are saying they think that could be Banksy himself. So there are many great things to do here at the show today, but I would say my favourite thing is the number of amazing dogs that are here today.
I grabbed some bits off this as well, yeah, the salt caramel pecan as well. That was one of the ones we did from the beginning.
Now that we know who our next Prime Minister is going to be, Liz Truss. Just arrived at Blackfriars Bridge from Kent, and we've got to the very back of the queue to go and see Her Majesty at Westminster. Thank you ever so much for watching us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night. Good night. Good night.
And Sofia joins me now. Sofia, whenever people ask me why I've become a journalist, I always say it's because journalists want to be in the front row seat of history. They want to be in the room where it happens, and you have this incredibly privileged life as a journalist, getting to see things happening that will change the world, and you're there and they're happening in front of you. It doesn't often happen this quickly though. Tell us, how long was it between you graduating and you being on College Green there in front of Parliament announcing the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss?
That clip we saw there of me at the College Green was, I think, not even 2 months after I'd graduated, which was almost a year ago now. I was quite shocked to have that opportunity. You know, felt like I was fresh out of university. Felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're giving me this opportunity. Amongst the world's media, there was, you know, I remember Victoria Derbyshire being there that day from BBC. There was many sort of big journalists, not just from the UK, but from across the globe. So I couldn't quite believe that so soon after graduating, I was doing that. It was really incredible, such a good experience.
Absolutely, and of course what makes that possible is KMTV, which is something which is unique about Kent University. We have a professional, Ofcom regulated television station, independent television channel based here on campus with us. Mm-hmm. You're part now of a professional newsroom, you're a full-time journalist working there, but obviously there's a big group of interns from the centre who make those programmes happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. But why don't you start by describing a little bit what your day-to-day job looks like over at KMTV?
Well, for me, it all started as an intern. You know, it's a stone's throw from this building right over there, which worked really well with balancing. I was in my third year, also had the opportunity to work, do a couple of intern shifts at KMTV each week. And it started as sort of shadowing people on packages. And then before I knew it, I was filming my own. It's things like camera operating, helping with microphones in the gallery, booking guests, all really exciting stuff. And then before I know it, I'd been an intern for around a year. I was then being kept on full time, which was nice because there's always that panic after you've graduated. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to find a job? But I really didn't have to go far, and I've stuck on campus, which has been great. It's much of the same, except it's not a couple of days a week for a few hours. It's every day, which I love. It's definitely a lot to take on, but I love it. It's something different every day. It can go from interviewing politicians to doing pottery like I've been doing today. So it's very different range of stories.
And so something about the local TV network is really special because someone like yourself at the beginning of your career can find yourself in all kinds of, like you said, you've presented their nightly news programme. You produce My Politics programme every week. You're involved in absolutely everything, and you can build up an amazing portfolio, which if you were a bigger organisation, inevitably it would be so much harder to get that experience, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the opportunities you get, I mean, interviewing Keir Starmer, I still can't quite believe it. I've had the chance to speak to him twice now. Mick Lynch, it really feels a little bit like imposter syndrome. I can't believe I'm, you know, in my early 20s and I'm doing this. It's so exciting, the opportunities it gives you, and yeah, it's just, I still can't believe it. It's really incredible.
So obviously you were a student here, and one of the things we touched on earlier on, but I want to get into a little bit more detail about now, is the National Council for the Training of Journalists, the NCTJ. My top tip for anyone watching this, thinking about a career in any aspect of journalism, is get yourself to www.nctj.com, as well as our website, which will be liberally spread around YouTube after this, because it's such an important gateway to a career, isn't it? You learnt NCTJ skills while you were with us. How have they helped you do your job?
Yeah, I remember one of the reasons why I chose to come here was because I was told that you would need some sort of accreditation to actually become a journalist, and I knew that this course offered that. And as I did the undergraduate course, I had 3 years. It's not like it was all sort of crammed into a short space of time. I had 3 years to do these exams, which was good. As Kieran was sort of touching on before, you get to do shorthand, which was such an interesting skill that some people would think is dying out, but it's absolutely not. I see journalists using it. Perhaps more print journalists would use it day to day, as I got the benefit of having it all on record. But so there's shorthand, law, which is so important, whether you're learning the IPSO or the Ofcom code for either print or broadcast. It's just something that you need to be aware of. You're putting out information, you have to make sure it's factually correct, and as you were saying there, diverse, you're getting the right of reply. So it's something I use every day. Even now, I'm brushing up on the Ofcom code as I'm putting out packages, but some of it is staying there in your long-term memory because you've got these accreditations and these exams that you've been doing, and we also got the chance to do broadcast exams, which was obviously particularly good for me because that was the area I wanted to go down. And I remember you get such a taste of what it's actually going to be like because you have to put together a few things for like a bulletin and a TV show, which is really good. So it gives you a really good taste of what it's actually going to be like out in the world.
And it's an important part of our final year that we haven't talked about yet, is that you actually work as a whole group of students, as a whole year group, to develop your own news brand and work for news days. So you, as a student, developed a news brand. Do you remember what yours was called?
Kent Connect News.
Kent Connect News.
That was it.
And it had a website. It had
did.
social media channels. Mm-hmm. You produced TV, radio, newspaper versions of that. Mm-hmm. How important was that to teaching you what a professional environment is like?
It was really realistic. Now that, having done that and having doing it now, the newsroom aspect, and you have your daily conference meetings where you're pitching ideas, you're assigning jobs to people. Oh, you'll go out do Vox Pops, you'll do this report. It's actually really gives you a good taste of what it's actually like, and it gives you an idea of what it's like to work as a team, but also be independent and be flexible, because you're not necessarily just going to be working on one thing. It's likely that you'll be helping to produce the show, helping to actually produce content for the show as well. So it definitely, gives you a good idea, and it's really exciting to have that autonomy of having your own news brand, and getting to use social media is fun as well, because I remember we could make TikToks, we could make Instagram stories. That was something that was really fun for, I think, our age group as well.
Brilliant. And being an editor as well, which is one of the things that we force you to make that jump, don't we, in that third year of managing your friends. How difficult was that?
You know what, it was a really interesting concept, not something that I think everyone was prepared for, but it really it makes you be prepared for these situations, because it's not something that you've ever really done. You've never managed people, especially your friends and your classmates, but it kind of pushes you to the situations that you're actually going to have to deal with when you become a journalist afterwards. It's the sort of situations you'll have to, I'm working with one of my best friends at KMTV at the moment, and it's that balance of thinking, we're colleagues, we're friends, how do you balance that? And I think it does give you a good sort of idea of how to deal with that.
It'd be fair to say, I'm talking to my producer as well as a former student here, that it's given you the confidence to manage me in the studio. And I think, when I see you at work there, I realise just what the growth that you've gone through over the kind of last 3 years, that you're able to do that, which is, and I think the news days are a really big part of that.
Absolutely.
But we've talked about KMTV. And we've seen a little taste there, but I wonder what your favourite story that you've worked on in the year that you've now been out in industry, what has it been?
There's been so many stories. I know I mentioned it before, but I still can't quite believe that I interviewed Keir Starmer, getting to hold politicians to account, and the leader of the opposition. I still can't quite believe it. I think it's got to be that. I did really enjoy the Medway elections, although it was very sleep deprived. It was such an interesting thing, and I do quite like the political stories. So I think it's got to be interviewing Keir Starmer.
Yeah, let's just stick on those Medway elections just for a second then, because we did a 3-hour programme on the day after, as those counts came
Yeah.
in, you were there having not slept basically all night producing that show. We had an army of interns helping us out, didn't we? And it's that kind of thing which is invaluable experience, isn't it?
Absolutely. The number of people that were willing to help, students from the Centre for Journalism, but also interns that were employed by KMTV, the number of people that actually wanted to help was incredible. And we needed all hands on deck in that scenario. 3 hours of programming is something that the current news team has not done before. So we really needed that help. And I was so glad to have two hands at the Medway elections, because we had 3 cameras, so we were able to position ourselves all across. And when I must admit, I did go home, get a couple of hours sleep. The boys were great, and they stuck there. Got the chance to interview some Kent MPs, which is incredible, and amongst the world's media again. Sky News, BBC, it's something that you never quite get used to. You're no longer a student, you're actually a journalist, but then the students at the same time were given that same respect, which is really nice.
One of the things that's over the last couple of years, which has been a real big benefit to the centre, is that we've been training BBC journalists as well. We're now delivering the senior journalist apprenticeship for the BBC, which means that several times a year we have a big group of BBC journalists, young BBC journalists, coming here, learning their skills and getting experience, including coming over and working at KMTV. What's been your experience? We've given some of them the chance to do some work on our politics show, haven't we? And has it been quite exciting working with them?
It's been really exciting. We've been able to sort of bounce off each other, give each other our ideas. They are learning things from us, but we're also learning things from them. It's great, and yeah, it's been really helpful to have that hand for the politics show. And then they've been able to have reports that have gone out on air, which is really exciting. And they've got to see what actually goes into putting together half an hour of programming once a week. They got that experience to see that. But then at the same time, it was exciting because we got to ask them, what's it like being a journalist at BBC? So it was a good sort of balance of teamwork there.
It's that amazing dynamic, isn't it, where we've got professional full-time journalists at KMTV, professional full-time journalists at the BBC, and our students all mixing together, learning from each other, which you wouldn't find anywhere else in the country, which is
absolutely
really
not. It's such a good opportunity.
Well, we don't have any more questions coming in. Thank you so much, Sophia, for your time this evening. Thank you to everybody who has joined us live tonight. Big thanks to Kieran and Sophia for all of their time. Remember, if you've had an offer to study at the Centre for Journalism, then the deadline to accept it is the 8th of June. And if you haven't applied yet, it's not too late. We're going to have spaces open for both our BA undergraduate and MA postgraduate programmes this summer. You can check out our website. It's www.kent.ac.uk/journalism for more details about all of our courses and how to apply. And if you have any more questions or want to arrange a visit to come and see the centre for yourself, you'll find contact details for us on that webpage as well. We'd like to wish you the very best of luck if you're preparing for A-levels or exams this summer. We hope to meet you properly in the future. Good night.